Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone. I don't know what time you're listening to us, but welcome back to the MatchNet podcast. Today, we have a very amazing match couple here who's going to share a crazy story of how they got together. And they decided to choose the topic of this podcast, matching a leap of faith. So, yeah, Nori, Samara, please introduce yourself.
Hi everyone. So my name is Norikuni Nishikawa, and I am from Indiana, a cute little Midwest state in the U.S. and currently 27 on my last semester and graduating my biology degree. And on my free time, I just try to have fun with video games, music, and yeah, I'll go with
Oh,
that.
nice to meet you, Nori.
And hello, my name is Samara. I'm from Brazil. I'm currently living in São Paulo. Both of my parents are Brazilians, so I'm full Brazilian, born and raised. I'm also 27 years old from 1996. And what do I like to do? It's kind of hard to describe yourself, right, without talking about hobbies and work. But yeah, well, I'm a second gen from Brazil. I enjoy playing video games as well. I enjoy meeting up with friends, eating good food, and yeah, thank you.
So these two wonderful people came together as a match couple. When was the matching ceremony?
July.
July. This July, after a very long process that both individually went through to get to this point. So that it's a happy end, but we want to hear your story of how you got there. And we have decided before the recording that Nori will share his story first, and then Samara will share her story. So, Nori, what was your story to get to that point of committing with someone for the blessing?
Luckily, I was able to really just explain my whole story to Sama when we were in our matching process. So I decided to kind of summarize my experience in regards to the idea of leap of faith in three. I don't want to say turning points per se.
But three leaps.
Three leaps. Yes, exactly. Three leaps. Three leaps of faith. And they're all kind of different in their own unique way. And I'll go into detail with that. But yeah, so let's see. So I was in a space where I try to overcome my PMO addiction, right? I think a lot of guys can relate to this and having their own journey being complicated, trying to make better habits and trying to, get rid of it through their own initiatives. And for me personally, I think the biggest struggle was trying to love myself and feeling worthy of anything, regardless of matching or blessing. Forget about that. We're talking about just even thinking am I even a good guy? Doing all this church work or doing all this good stuff while I still have this problem, right? So I think one thing that happened in my life of faith was just little whispers of this thing called high noon. And I was like, huh, interesting. Okay. I never really thought much about it, but as I started to seek, and really, I'm not much of a prayerful person, but I think there were definitely a few times where I just kind of talked to God and being like, okay, I don't know what's going on. And I'm trying my best, but is there anything that could be out there that I could be better? So, and while it's not as difficult to take this action in regards to leap of faith, I wanted to give it a shot. So giving it a chance and giving things a chance was something I really try to open up to. And I knew that even though I didn't have like a huge confidence to know if high noon was for me, that I would still give it a chance. So this was in 2019. It was like a winter time. I don't remember the exact month, but it was in Chicago. So it was convenient. It was close by, and actually, I believe if I remember correctly, my mom also attended too. So that was additional support that I was able to get. So when I attended, I was definitely blown away by not just the content, but in particular about someone sharing their testimony about their journey. And this was a person I very much respected a whole lot. And learning how much this has impacted their life, I was like, oh God, like it's not like world shattering, but it gave me like such not only huge amount more respect for this person, but it gave me hope. It gave me hope to know that even though they're and I know people struggle. I know people like have their own challenges and things going on and their own journeys. But it definitely is like that's when I really like one of the few instances in my life where I felt like the power of testimonies and how they can move you and create your own story moving forward. So yeah. So by doing that, the next small steps that I made was attend this. I'm pretty sure Hainan still offers this. It's like a 15-day course to help me learn more about Hainu, learn more about what it's like. And then after that, I officially joined in my first accountability group call through Hainun in Ascend the following year in 2020. And yeah, it was through there that I really got to experience a lot of core values of what High Noon's all about, right? Being honest and being taking accountability and being respectful and yeah, a lot of great things that I think if it wasn't for like my initial curiosity of like just taking a chance, I think that was one of my yeah leaps of faith. The next biggest one, however, was definitely when I tried to think and decide if I want to go to the 24 plus retreat. Now, this was an online one that happened in a couple years later in December of 2021. But of course, registration happened, like a few months back. So, this one was definitely challenging because even though like I was in high noon and I felt like I was taking the right steps and moving forward. I wasn't quite sure because like when I thought of the 24 plus back then, it was like, oh, like I had to have a profile. I had to already, talk to someone and share all my um weaknesses, my backstory and whatnot. I have to confess in front of my parents, and there are all these kind of things that I thought I had to have before attending the 24 plus retreat. But I don't remember if it was like a specifically if it came from like one of the high 24 plus retreat staff members or if it was from previous people's testimonies. But the important part was I learned that you don't have to be in that place. In fact, it's encouraged to go there with an open mind and open heart to learn more about yourself. Like that is okay. And this is where my next level of leap of faith came, that it didn't matter as much as am I qualified? Am I worthy right now to commit? And as soon as that hit me, I realized like, yeah, like it's not like I am obligated to commit to someone by attending the 24 plus retreat. And that this leap of faith was, am I willing to trust God? Am I willing to trust myself to allow myself to kind of throw myself out there into what the next step could be like? When I'm already at that place of being ready for a matching process and being ready to commit, right? And I know for a lot of, at least for my discussions and talks, I know the word commitment is very, very scary, very scary. But I wasn't trying to commit to an eternal relationship. I was committing to taking the next step. And so, as soon as I had that clear mindset, I attended to learn more about myself. I tended to learn more about what sisters are looking for, what other brothers are looking for, and kind of have a more clear picture. And it was definitely a wonderful experience. Such amazing like new things I learned about myself. What the word commitment meant for other sisters, for not other sisters in general, as well as brothers too. And I walked away just being more clear about what the blessing meant for me, what the mentoring process is going to look like for me. And, with that heart, I felt victorious and, I wanted to continue. And then the third and final, I say third, but it's like, one of those like tests where like there's like 3 questions, but each part actually has like part A, part B, part C, part D, part E. So the third one is actually, I'll generalize it and then talk about 2 specific points. So don't worry, it's just a part A and part B. So this particular leap of faith was centered on, can I believe in myself to share and to be honest? And these are one of the things that I try to practice in Hainan. And actually, I did a little bit of that, when I first started the SEN program, in being vulnerable and allowing myself to really show not my true nature, but like my whole self, right? That I'm not a perfect person. That I'm not just this person who just attends church. I'm not just this person who thinks about God or two parents. But I do struggle in all aspects of PMO, all kinds of aspects, not all of them. But in terms of timeline, so after the first 24 plus retreat, there was another 24 plus retreat, and this was in person of last year around the late fall ish in 2022. And I had a similar like idea of taking that leap of faith of trying to take that next step and like really trying to find someone. But despite me being there and despite me like wanting to deepen my like I guess not only deepen my relationship with God and your parents, but also like what it means to be an ideal candidate, right? And just by having those one-to-one conversations, it definitely dawned on me that I still felt like I wasn't ready, and it was fine. But it wasn't until the last day, and this wasn't even part of the plan whatsoever. But I just was talking to a few people, and I had such an incredible experience in where I was able to experience God's grace. And I won't go into detail of like who I talked to or like what exactly happened to it, but essentially I was able to just once more look back into like what I was doing to myself. And the experience that I had allowed me to really just embrace God's unconditional love of grace that, even despite all the things that at that time when I shared about who I was and what I went through in my life, that it's not about like how I'm not close to a standard or how I should compare others' growth and see that as like my progress of growth, but to really allow God to come to my life and receive such incredible love, to know that, I may not be there and it's okay. And when I was able to, if it wasn't for the fact that I was able to share honestly about who I was and what I was going through, that I wouldn't have received such a big blessing and what it means to really be loved for who I am as, okay. Um, Trying not to get caught up. But yeah, that I am a son of God, and whatever perspective that means for anyone else who is listening to this, but it gave me so much clarity that I am valuable, that I am loved, and that I can, um, that I am worthy of receiving love, right? And this, yeah, this like leap of faith of wanting to share honestly and vulnerably, so much so that I'm just like allowing, like, it's like, yeah, like really being vulnerable, right? And that was like the highest level I could have taken. And I received so much blessings from that. And this was like definitely another life changing where I grew in my relationship, got more. And then now that I've had like similar moments like that in the past, but I never really saw that as God working through my life. And it wasn't until I had this experience in the 24 plus retreat that I was like, wow, God has been working through my life the whole time, you know. And I was blessed for sure. And I'm so super grateful for that experience. And because of moments like that, where I can practice honesty and practice being vulnerable, that when it came time to the matching process between myself and Sama, literally like the first day, I was not confident, but I was willing to express my whole, you know, PMO struggle, right? So freely. And I didn't have to worry about any fear, any limitations, or any accusations I have myself, but just really being honest and vulnerable for Sama. And that was such a much easier leap of faith for me to take. And if it wasn't for these other leap of faith that I'd taken, then I would have never become um, a man who is willing to continue to grow and continue to offer my life for the love of my life. um, of course, not to say that all other conversations were difficult. There were definitely much um, harder times where trying to not be honest, but like taking that leap of faith, right? Um, but I do believe that, yeah, just whatever levels of level of faith, whatever levels of taking a leap of faith means to someone, whether it's like me at the beginning where it's like I'm just, why not just take it a shot and just why not, to I want to practice honesty, which means allow myself to be potentially stabbed or potentially judged, but it's not about that. It's about really just expressing myself honestly, and like that I care about the honesty rather than my image or whatever. So yeah, um I think I would just end in saying, despite me not being, you know, not thinking that I have a super strong spiritual life of faith or prayerful person, but I do know that allowing yourself to have those moments of a little bit of prayer and a little bit of faith in yourself, that one next step is all you really need. Uh, and that is my testimony of that.
Wow, Nori, thank you so much. Thank you for sharing your part. We will come back to you once we unite the whole two stories. But I want to go to Samara. If you can share with us what was your journey to get to what were the leaps of faith that you needed to take in order to get to this point of being matched now?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, in the beginning of the podcast, we were talking about that, right? How our stories related and what it had in common, right? What was the main takeaway? And I think in terms of leap of faith, it was a little bit different for me in a sense that it was more like the fact that I had to keep having faith, like I had to be strong and to keep believing even when things seemed like hopeless, right? So it wasn't so much a matter of like taking a step forward, but like keep continuing. It was more of a marathon, right? So I want to get what Nori was sharing about the fact that during his time in Haino and the experiences he had built up the courage for him to share honestly with me on the first date, right? And so I just wanted to comment on that because it was very interesting because of my like past experiences, and also because I already had a contact with Haino and I had this as a personal value as well. Like honesty was something really important for me, right? So we had an extended conversation after the 24 plus, and I was sharing with him what kind of person I was looking for, right? What were my 3 main points? And I said to him that it was faith, um, purity in the sense, not that the person has not made any mistakes, but that has a clear vision about purity, right? And what it means to them, and good understanding of what the blessing meant as well, and communication, right? And then when he heard me talking about purity, I didn't mention explicitly PMO issues, but he willingly talked about it on his own, So he was just, oh, I think by that you also mean sexual integrity, PMO related issues. And I was impressed because he started sharing his story to me. And he had a very clear understanding of where he was at, why he was doing what he was doing, where he wanted to be. And I just found out later, but he had read The Core of the Universe, and he had a very like good understanding of what the blessing meant, and that was meant to be for someone else, that we have like exchange ownership of the sexual organs, and that he wanted to be fully present for the other person in the relationship, right? So that was like one of the things that caught my attention the most, that it was like, okay, I want to continue talking to this guy. This is a good one. So it was definitely very important to me, feeling this honesty coming from him, and yeah, so when it comes to my story, to the matching process, it all started when I was a teenager, and I was in this process of finding my own faith, right? So I can say that I didn't believe in God, but I also did not believed in God. I was kind of in between, trying to find my own faith. And then I took 2 years in a gap year program, and I had a very strong determination. Like, I'm going to do that. I either find God and continue in this path, or I don't, right? And I had a very good experience with God and with True Mother, right? That Champion is a really special place. It's like the atmosphere there is totally different, as I don't know, there's something very special and holy there, right? And I felt that despite me not being at the place that I wanted to be, having the faith that I wanted to have yet, no one judged me there, like I was part of the Chenyan team. I was like main vocal. I was doing a lot of stuff together with people, but no one questioned me, like True Mother was always saying, oh, you are like pure water, you are my children, and offering lots of love to us. Like when it was summertime, she would randomly give free ice cream to all of us. Really this heart of a mother, right? We were rehearsing to the presentation we were going to do, and she would just remember that we were probably hungry because it was late at night. Then we would have like G burger for free, So like very small stuff that built that atmosphere of unconditional love for me, right? So I was very sure of, wow, that's what I want for me. That's the life I want to live, right? So that's where I decided, okay, God must exist, right? Because that's what he built and that's his representative on earth. So that's where I met Carina as well, by the way. And yeah, so then when I came back, I was firmly determined to get blessed, right? So I was kind of with the same determination. I'm going to do that, even it doesn't matter what it takes. I will do that, right? So having this strong determination was important, but that's where faith comes in, right? This determination was tested a lot of times. So in total, I had, I think, 5-ish processes, and it took me 6 years to find the person. I started when I was 21, and I met Nori this year, and I was already 27. And yeah, it was very challenging, like the first process didn't work. Then I spent like 1 year reaching out to people, and it was very frustrating because maybe foreign people can't relate to me, but like when you send emails, that's kind of hard for people to reply sometimes, not to like not give hope to people, but that happens sometimes, realistically speaking. So that would make me feel very frustrated. And I was doing a lot of conditions, like a lot of things, and everything felt like, oh, I have done everything I could and it's not working, And then I participated on the first 24 plus that Carina recommended to me. I didn't know it existed, but she was telling me like, oh, you can participate in this one. And I was excited to participate. It was a new experience. I was like, okay, then people can get to know me instead of like just sending an email, right? And from that workshop, I started one matching process that lasted around 7 months. And I think that was the hardest one, but the one that I learned the most as well, right? So it was very difficult for me for like, I think I was very naive, right? Very blessed as well, but very naive, very protected by God. So like in my first process was when I found out, luckily the guy was very honest, a very good person, and he shared about his PMO problems as well. But that was the first time that I heard about it. So it was very shocking for me, right? So shocking in the sense of I thought that was a problem that people outside of the church had, but not inside of the church, And I know it's a very like naive mindset, but I just didn't know, right? So it was very important for me to grow this aspect of like what you were asking to Nori, not justifying, but also having grace, So that was like a process that I had go through personally. And I had to learn how to offer to people, So I had to learn like, it's not that I think it's okay, but it's not that the person is a bad person or that they cannot overcome this, So this was a very important learning experience for me, this first process. And then on the second one that lasted like 7 months, I had a lot of problems with anxiety, right? The fact that I didn't know what to do, that I didn't know where to go, that I didn't know if I was doing the right thing, and that I felt that I could not help him or love him the way I wanted to help, and love. Really made me like too hard on myself, like I'm saying all of those stuff. I'm saying that I'm a good member. I am this and that. I value faith. I value true parents, but I'm not even able to love this son of God, with all his good and bad sides. So after the process didn't work, I was in a very low state, right? In a very like anxious, depressive state. And I met God in a happy place, right? So trying to find God in a dark place was really hard to me. But I have my national leader, I have a good relationship with him. And he would always tell me like, just trust God and do like enough conditions that you are sure that the spiritual world has no other option but to help you. They respect you so much that they have no other option. And during this process, since I didn't know the answer, I did like a lot of things. I did like 3 wish papers. I did like 3 days of 7 hours reading in a row. I did fasting, a bunch of stuff like I did. And I felt that it was really worth it. I felt that God really guided me towards the end of the process. It was kind of like miraculous how I got my answer. So I had this strong feeling of, okay, I have to just keep going. I need to keep my faith. But it was terrible, because it's like when you feel torn, like I was feeling, oh, nothing is going to work. I'm a terrible person. I cannot love someone. I'm a hypocrite. And those kind of like thoughts versus, no, I have experienced God once and he's still there somewhere, even though I didn't understand. So like, my parents helped me a lot, and like through talking with them, through asking very honest questions, to my parents and to Carina as well, and talking to her, to my best friend as well. Having the support system was extremely important to keep me going, right? And yeah, then I continued, right? And I was like, okay, I was still super scared on my second 24 plus because I was kind of traumatized. I was super scared. But I said, okay, I'll do it. I'm not going to think about it. I'll just participate, right? But I felt like I would literally shake during the calls. Luckily, it was online, so no one would notice that much. Yeah, but it was difficult. But afterwards, I felt, okay, I managed. It was possible, right? It wasn't so scary as it seemed at first. But then another person reached out to my family and I started a different process, right? Which of course didn't work as well. And it was very hurtful because it hurt like my self-esteem, right? So I was like, wow, I have done so much. I have done everything I could and it's still not working, right? And yeah, then on 2022, I felt like, no, the beginning of this year, 2023, actually, I felt very hopeless, right? And then I was trying to reach out to other people and it wouldn't work out. And we would try different ways of reaching out to people. Carina was my matching supporter and she would like do her best to reach out to people by different ways, email, workshops, contacting parents. But something would always happen, like, and I even joked that it seemed that there were miracles happening in the other way around, like something that seems to have all the odds to work out, it wouldn't, right? So I felt very like hopeless, right? And I remember that clearly, like Carina saying to me around like February this year, hold on to hope, just hold on to hope. And I took that very, like, it was one sentence, right? That could be very clear on my mind, just hold on to hope. And then the spouse of my national leader, the wife of my national leader, she came to me and said, I was praying in the Chongqing One prayer room, and I felt that you should offer some time here working publicly in the headquarters. And I was like, okay, I'm going to do that for 40 days and pray. And then she said, I think you should also offer 40 days prayer and the Chongqing One prayer room, right? And I was, okay, I'm going to do that. I had a firm belief in like doing conditions. And then Carina also told me like, I feel that it's close. I feel that it's working, but I was very hopeless. So it was just like, okay, I'm going to trust you guys because I know God work through a vertical line. So I'm going to trust you. But I was very like, no, that's, yeah, not going to work, but I was still trying to like hold on to hope, right? And then after my 40 days condition finished, I had this third 24 plus. That was where I met Nori, right? And it was like very miraculous in a way because the process was very smooth, right? I met him, and after talking to him, like he had such a pure heart, such a good vibe around him, such a natural way of wanting to connect to God, an honest way of sharing. And that I was like, okay, I want to talk to this guy, right? And then we started talking, and like after the experience I shared before, we started officially a matching process, and it took like around 1 month for us to be like firmly decided that we wanted to move forward. And we got matched in, as Carina said, in July this year. But it was all very fast, right? And it felt like it was meant to be, but only because of the experiences that I had before. Like now I knew how to receive the honesty he was sharing with me. Now I had the heart of like, yeah, his intentions are clear. His understanding of purity is clear. His understanding of his faith and of God is clear. So I just could trust him completely. And I never regretted, like up to this point. I don't know if I will share, but if Nori later say that I couldn't share, you can cut this part, okay? But then on the first day I think second day, we had a very firm talk about PMO and how he was doing. And he was very respectful and committed. He said, like, no, I'll commit. Like he was doing very good on the pornography aspect of it already, but still struggling on the masturbation part, right? And he did a very firm commitment to me. No, I will do that because I want to be fully there for you. I want to offer myself entirely for this relationship, and for you. And after that, like he really kept this commitment, like there were like very few slips, but not only that, like his attitude and his willingness to learn more, to cultivate that Taino life, that sexual integrity, was very impressive. Really proud of him. Could I share this last part, Nori?
Samara, would you say that all that you went through before was to get you ready and for meeting Nori?
Yeah, definitely. I felt very guided. Right? Like I think that's why my leap of faith was a bit different. It was more of a marathon, right? But if I hadn't had my first process, I wouldn't understand with a righteous heart, but also with grace, what struggles people had. If I hadn't faced anxiety myself and went through a time where I was also in a dark place, and understanding that I was still loved by God, that I was still worth it. And I think once you have that, once you know you're loved, then you have the strength to fight the things you're fighting against, right? Because when we feel unloved and unworthy, we start doing the things that makes us feel unworthy even more, right? So like through this experience of like feeling very low emotionally, I could understand more the heart of people that struggle with other addictions, right? Because wanting or not, anxiety, depression, those are also addictions, but to a certain mindset, a certain pattern of thoughts that you have, right? So it really helped me to have grace towards others and towards myself, but not what is the word? Not breaking my values, not giving up on my values, I also remember once you told me, I was very like, oh, but I cannot just say to someone, oh, it's okay when they make a mistake, And then you were sharing with me, you don't have to say it's okay. You have to still love the person, offer grace to that person, but you can be firm. You can say, no, I think that's wrong because of this, and that, right? So like learning this balance, right? To still be firm on my values, but offer grace was like really, really important. Like having those stones on my life of faith was very important as well. Trusting God, trusting that He will put people in my life that will help me, building the support network, knowing that if I do conditions, God has more like power to work, right? And yeah, I think all of that was very important. If it wasn't for that, like I wouldn't have even participated in the last 24 plus, because of that phrase, hold on to faith. I was thinking, okay, but what it means to have faith in this moment. Because if I approach this workshop with fear, it's like a child that jumps from the bed and is scared that the father will not catch him. But the child is never afraid, they just jump, right? So if I'm afraid of it, or if I put too much expectation that my heart is heavy, like desperate, then that's not trust. That's not faith, right? So I remember we created a North Star together of just approaching the 24 plus as a walk in the park. You're just chill, you just trust, you're calm. So yeah, this buildup was what led me to even participate, I know, and later on to understand Nori and to see like all the amazing sides that he has.
So beautiful. Samara, how do you deal with rejection? Because through this process, it's 5 years, you had to approach many people, right? And receive a lot of rejections. And that can like kind of make people crazy almost, right?
Yeah.
So how do you dealt with rejection?
I think in a way it was a little bit easier because the majority of the rejections I faced was through email. Like we didn't even start the communication process. So that was a little bit easier, but like thoughts would still come up in my mind. Like, oh, maybe my picture is not good. Maybe it's because I'm Black. I don't know, like random thoughts would come to my mind, like why people don't want to like start a conversation, right? And I think for me, what was very important was to have love from other areas of my life, right? Like my parents, my relationship with friends, my relationship with the church. There is this aspect of like conjugal love that is not being met. And there is nothing that can substitute that. That's for sure. But at least that's how I felt, right? But there are many other things that can fill your love tank with different kinds of love and keep you going. So I would cry for like 2 days and then I would do something fun, like, oh, I'm going to go eat out with my friends, or I'm going to go to a concert with my brother, So I saw those things not as a waste of time, but as an investment, in my happiness, in myself. At least I tried to see that way, Yeah, the processes that I actually got to talk to the person, there was just one that I got rejected, but it was pretty painful because it was because of a physical aspect, like he told me directly, oh, it's because you're this, So that was very difficult, At first I felt like it didn't affect me, because I always felt that I was very loved by my family, by my friends. I was sure that I was loved, because of this support network I had. I was sure that I was loved. But of course, it got to me, like he told me that I was too skinny, right? So I was self-conscious about that. I was comparing myself. I was starting to see too much videos on YouTube of different kinds of body, So what you consume also makes you feel that way, right? So it took me a while to like consume other positive things, body positive things, and to consume more things that were related to my value as a child of God, to invest in my relationships where I was unconditionally loved. So that would really helped me to remind myself that I was worthy of love, that I was, but yeah, it's really hard. And I think it's really important to remember that it's not on you, but you are valuable just because of the fact that you are a child of God, and that's enough. You're unique. There's no one in the whole world that is like you, that has your talents. You're the most, like the biggest effort that God has ever made. His utmost expression of creativity, right? So that, like, reminding myself of those things really, really helped.
No, thank you. To conclude, because I don't want to make it so long, I want to ask you, both of you, right? Like, you guys have very long journeys to kind of meet, right? And then you both share that although all the struggles that you went through individually, when you met, it felt very smooth and fast, right? Can you share a little bit more how this relationship feels, and then, like, of course, each matching process will feel different, right? But at the same time, I have a theory, or at least I experience it myself as well, that when something is like God guided, it feels smoothly. Doesn't mean that it's easy, but it's smooth, right? Like, it feels like right, in a way, right? So can you describe the feeling so other people can see, oh, is that how I'm feeling? Is that how this process going or not, right? So yeah, I would love to hear more your description of what you're experiencing in this moment with this smooth process.
As someone just shared, she had years of searching and finding. I technically really started back in 2019, which is like 4 years. But in the 24 plus retreat and actively seeking, it wasn't until like, just a couple of years ago. So, and with Sama as my first matching process, right? So that being said, and maybe because it was my first matching process with Sama, in general, I really felt like I needed very clear signs of not just things going smoothly, but just really finding like uh, not like a miraculous sign that like randomly clouds will come together and say Sama is your perfect match or anything like that. But one thing that I truly believe in is God works in numbers, right? God works through in consistency and patterns, right? So honestly, it didn't hit me until I heard Sama share that this is also her third 24 plus retreat, and this was my third 24 plus retreat. Granted, uh, not all of them were in person, but yeah, like seeing how three sometimes seems to work pretty interestingly, and also it wasn't until as I shared my experience with at the second 24 plus retreat of receiving God's grace, I felt like that was like really the third time that I was able to receive that specific way of receiving God's grace. And I'm like, okay, I'm going towards the right direction very strongly. And when it came to the actual process, yeah, I think on a practical level, it was like, okay, is everything that I had asked for God, as well as what God would want me, like, is that all checked off, so to speak, right? So there's like that practical, actual preparation that you can make for yourself, right? Um, the values that you're searching for, what kind of relationship you want to build as a couple, as a family, where your spiritual life of faith is like, right? And why you want to receive the blessing, right? So like those things are kind of like more concrete and controllable, but there's definitely a more spiritual aspect that I feel like is necessary to allow your matching process to work. I firmly really believe that, and I think not only in the signs, so to speak, with three, but just and again, like without me not knowing Sama's history, like knowing how direct and honest she is and willing to, express herself, it's like, wow, this is like gonna go a long way, you know. And I think that's part of it, right? Once you know your values and what you're looking for, and when you ask God, these are the things I'm looking for, somehow things will come into place. And we live here in the physical world. Who knows what actually is the rules of the spirit world? But the important part is how can we move spirit world and how we can invite spirit world to guide us, right? And if we just be very clear in what we're asking, and it's not to say that that's selfish, right?
Yeah.
It's just another, again, honesty and being just more explicit. Like these are the things I'm looking for, and allowing spirit world to work through that. And I think one caveat, not caveat, one additional thing I want to say is my personal relationship with God. In that, I don't remember what I was exactly doing. I knew I was reflecting, well, either reflecting on the schedule or reflecting how I thought about Sama. I'm pretty sure it was the latter, because Sama was kind of in my head. It's like, is this right? Should I go home with this? Randomly out of nowhere, I just hear very clear words of, Nori, please take care of my daughter. And I was like,
Aw.
and I just wrote that down. I was like, hold up, I don't know what this exactly means, but let me just write this down.
Oh, you just give me shivers.
Yeah, I know, right? That's what I found like. And yeah, it was a very strange experience. I was like, huh, okay. But I knew it was very important, so I had to write it down. And I kind of prayed and reflected on like what it really, really meant. And I felt like, I also had this heart of like wanting to really offer myself fully. And I learned that, when it comes to like secular relationships, right, you kind of give a piece of yourself, right, when you invest into a relationship. And if it doesn't work out well, especially if you already crossed the boundaries of like sexual ties with each other or invested monetary like gifts to them, right, and if they break apart from you, a part of you just kind of goes with them, you know. And for me, I really felt like I really wanted to offer myself, like whole self, to this one person. And not to say that like if I had matching processes that would be like that, but I really felt strongly to this idea that I just wanted to offer myself wholly. And thank God that I had Sama to also embrace my weird side as well. So that, yeah, I wouldn't say that's the main factor, but just like, like there's multiple other factors that allow me to be comfortable with Sama, that allow me to really express who I am, not just naturally who I am as a person, what I like, what I don't like, but also, the dark sides of me, my shadows, so to speak, right? But it's not to say that these are the shadows that will cling on to me for the rest of my life, but these are the current shadows that I have, and I want to live kind of like the high noon lifestyle. I want to live eventually a life with no shadows, so I can invest wholeheartedly to this wonderful person. So,
So sweet. Oh my goodness. Samara, we hear you.
Yeah, my sister-in-law, she always said to me, like, when you have a feeling, when your heart is not at peace, it tells you something, right? But I don't know, I think I was more of a logical person, or I was trying to be, right? So a lot of times I would ignore that. Even though I wasn't feeling my heart at peace in the process, I would be thinking, okay, but what can I do best, or how can I invest more? Which I think is a good approach, right? It's not bad. But what I mean is that when it's like meant to be, I think you really feel it, this, even though, as you said, it's not that it's easy, but it's smooth, right? It feels like peaceful, right? Or at least that was how it felt to me, right? And so when I met him, this aspect of like really knowing what I wanted, as he shared, was also really important. As I said, I was very naive before. So when I started, I had this mindset of, oh, I want to accept anyone, which is a good heart to have. But I feel that I had this heart because I thought that everyone was like my family, that I really love my brothers and my family, and they're very mature, responsible, honest people, right? So in my head, everyone was like that, right? So I had to like grow a little bit and to understand that those were my values, like honesty, courage, faith, integrity, sexual purity, the values of like true parents, right, and of our movement. So I had to understand that those were non-negotiable, right? So it felt the same when I started talking to him. Like he said, oh, I checked my boxes, right? So I had my like non-negotiable points that were also all checked, right? But yeah, besides that, it also felt very, very smooth, right? Even the challenges, we were both able to be honest about what we were thinking, what we were struggling about, and we were able to reach out to people to help us, older couples like Carina and Robert, Hainum, mentors as well, our own BFM. So all of that was there, right? But it felt as something that we could do, that like God was taking our hand and saying, no, come with me, you can do it, So you feel, I think, more courageous, right? Not afraid.
So beautiful. I'm so happy you guys are together and things are going, as you say, well, smooth. It's not easier. Like before recording this podcast, we were discussing about legal things and immigration, and then like the logical stuff, right? So then there's money. There's so many things that it doesn't make the whole thing easy, but that doesn't mean that it's not right, right? So I really feel God. It's just a miracle to see how like someone can be so. I was helping Samara, right, and I can see how she was at the beginning of the year so hopeless, right, and then pass it to now almost end of the year is like completely different place, like so happy finally getting what she wants, and and it's not selfish, right? It's like we want to create beautiful families for God, right? Like we want the matching, receive the blessing for God, and for our happiness too, because it's part of our process, right? That's why God gave us, okay, you had 3 steps to do for happiness, He make it easier. It's like these are the steps that you had to do to become a happy person, and one of those is receiving the blessing, right? So I'm so happy to see you both here. And it's funny because Robert helped Nori through High Noon too, so it just feels really right. And I I know that it's a leap of faith, right? And a leap of faith that is very spiritual process, right? As you were saying, and I want to at some point make a whole podcast episode about spiritual conditions for the matching. But yeah, you guys are really a big example of why we don't know why God make us go through the things that he makes us go through, right? We don't know why, but at the end we will know why. In the moment we don't know, but when we are like in the conclusion, or when we are completing a chapter, then everything will make sense. So what we need to do is just to trust that God is as you say, Samara, holding our back, right? That he's not gonna just let us destroy us, but he has a reason of why he's putting the things in our way, right? And he has a plan for us. So to conclude, do you want to do final thoughts, final advice to people who are listening to this podcast today? And what about you, Samara? This time, starting with you.
I think I want to end on a high note, right? Because sometimes I would struggle so much that I would ask my older brother who is married, is that really worthy? Is that so good to be married that is worth all of this trouble, And I'm not even blessed yet, but I can definitely say that it's worth it. It's a different amount of yourself that you give, a different amount of love that you give and that you receive as well, feeling completely loved, right? So I never thought that I would find such an amazing person as Nodi, that has such a kind heart, such an honest person, and very caring, thoughtful. I never thought that that was for me, right? I always thought no, God is going to make me suffer more so I can grow more. There's not going to be happiness for at least 3 generations, but no, it's not like that. It's really, really happy, really. I feel my heart very full of joy and gratitude, every day, Not that I didn't have before, but even more now. So yeah, it's worth it.
I always say that, the blessing is worthy. Yeah, that's my motto. What about you, Nori?
So many things to say in such little time. But yeah, I think if I were to talk, I think the best way I can answer this is if I were to talk to myself when I was whether it was the guy who graduated high school or is going through tough times in trying to start a matching process or prepare for one or whatnot, or even just curious, right, about what I want to do in my life, I would say this. First and foremost, y'all are amazing human beings. Y'all deserve all the love in the world, and for whatever talents, abilities, struggles, challenges, blessings is part of your life, some way, somehow, it will come back to you. And God will use that in a way to help guide you to what you, maybe not what you have thought of, but and maybe not even what you needed per se, but this is something that we're gonna try out, and to trust in God in that process, right? And yeah, so no matter what path, whatever path that we take, no matter how long it takes or what kind of processes, no matter how challenging it is, it's all about you and God, and it's all about what you want in life, right? And the more clear that you are, and the more that you're willing to just take that one next step, um, to never give up, and just know that you always are doing your best, and I encourage you guys to remind yourself of that every now and then, that you are doing your best, and I believe in you guys, and I believe in myself, and I'll continue to do so.
So beautiful. Thank you, Nori. Thank you, Nori, Samara, for sharing your story today. Thank you, everyone, for listening to the end. Please check out MatchNet. There's a bunch of courses that will guide you through the process of becoming a candidate and then having the right heart to approach the matching process. So thank you, everyone, and see you next time. Bye-bye.